Hey guys, today I want to talk about 7 reasons why I think the Sony FX30 is a better choice than the Sony FX3. Now you may already be thinking there really isn't much of a reason to choose the FX30 if you have the budget for the FX3, but I'd argue that this camera more than suffices in many scenarios. For me personally, as a wedding filmmaker, if I was starting my business from scratch, this camera would have everything I need to create beautiful films. But I don't only think that this camera is great for wedding films, I think it's a good choice for other types of client work as well. So let's get right into it. So the most obvious reason to choose the FX30 over the FX3 is the price. It's literally less than half the price at only $1,800 US. When I first heard what the FX30 is priced at, I was absolutely shocked, considering it has so many great specifications. Now, if you'd rather choose to go with the FX3, you'll be spending $3,900 US. That is a significant increase over the FX30. When a camera is priced this low, we initially think it must not be very good, but the FX30 is jam-packed with great features at a low cost. If I was starting out again, I would buy 2 of the FX30s rather than one FX3 or A7S III. Talking about low price, this leads into my next reason, which is lens options. You probably know this already, but Sony full-frame lenses are quite expensive. In some scenarios, you may end up spending more on the lens than the camera itself. But the Sony FX30 has an APS-C sensor, which means you can buy the cheaper APS-C lenses for this camera. These lenses can be half or even a third of the cost of full-frame lenses, yet still produce similar quality. One of my favorite APS-C lenses, the Sigma 18 to 50mm f2.8, costs only $500 US. The closest full-frame equivalent, the Sigma 24 to 70mm f2.8, costs over $1,000 US. Also, an extra perk of having APS-C lenses is that they are usually smaller, so this is good for travel filmmaking or if you just want to have a small, minimal setup. Reason number 3 is the LCD screen. Now, the FX30's LCD screen has 2.36 million dots, compared to the FX3 screen at 1.44 million dots. That's a significant increase in quality, which will make filmmaking much more easier. I definitely noticed yesterday when I was filming that short FX30 Cinetone video, I was looking at the screen and I couldn't believe the quality. I could see the image so clearly. Though I usually film with an on-camera monitor, this gives me the confidence to just grab my camera, go out, and I know that I can see my image clearly on the LCD screen. Probably the most exciting reason to choose the FX30 over the FX3 is its higher resolution. Yes, internally both cameras record the same codecs and resolution, but the FX30 oversamples from a 6K image. This produces a much more detailed image compared to the FX3s. Now, I know not everyone cares about having a sharper image, that's fine. Stylistic choices, or it just depends on the type of work you're doing. You can see that if you're doing product type work that you definitely want a sharper image. If sharpness matters to you, the FX30 is definitely a good choice. Moving on to the next reason, let's talk about battery life. I already think the FX3 has great battery life. One battery can get me up to 2 hours of filming, but the FX30 is even better. I can get an extra 30 minutes of recording time. Okay, reason number 6 is focus mapping. Now, I wish this feature was on the FX3 and the A7S III, and I thought that they would add it with these new firmware updates that are coming out, but they still haven't added it. But the FX30 does have it. This tool is incredible for nailing focus every time. And yes, Sony has incredible autofocus. You could just rely on that all the time. But if you like to do creative shots, do manual focus, it's nice to see where your image is actually focusing. The clear part of the image signifies what is in focus and the colored portion is out of focus. Now, going back to the quality of the LCD screen, this feature will give you even more confidence to film without a monitor. Okay, the last reason that I want to mention is breathing compensation. This feature is incredible and so useful and will definitely elevate the quality of your work. I'll show you an example of the breathing compensation off and then on so you can see it for yourself. I believe that this feature will give your films a more cinematic look. Well guys, those are my 7 reasons why you should choose the Sony FX30 over the FX3. And don't get me wrong, the FX3 is an incredible camera. I've been using it for over a year. I absolutely love it. But with all the specifications and the quality that comes out of the FX30, it's almost too good to be true. Soon I'll be putting out a video why you should choose the FX3 over the FX30. So make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on so that you don't miss it. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to figure out which is the best cinema camera between the Sony FX30, FX3, and FX6. Now each of these cameras are absolutely incredible, but not each one will be right for you. So in this video, I'm gonna break down each one of these cameras and give my opinion about them. Now I'm not gonna go super in depth about each of these cameras, but I will cover the most important subjects, all the stuff that you need to know. Well, my name is Jonah August. I'm a wedding filmmaker based in Vancouver, Canada, and I'm happy that you're here. So let's jump right into this. First, talking about the body designs of these cameras. The FX30 and the FX3 have pretty much the exact same body. They both weigh around 640 grams, which is extremely light. The FX6, on the other hand, has a significantly different body design. It still is pretty light at 890 grams, which is about 2 pounds. This is extremely light for a cinema camera. The first time I grabbed this and picked it up, I was absolutely shocked at how light it was. They all have a great assortment of custom function buttons littered all around the cameras, but the FX6 does take the cake when it comes to custom functions. Literally almost everything you could possibly think of is clearly laid out on this camera. There are sufficient tally lights on all three of these cameras to make sure that you're recording when you want to be. All cameras come with dual SD and CF Express Type A card slots. This is great so you can easily record at all bit depths and bit rates. All cameras share Sony's E-mount. There are 1/4 inch mounting points on all of these cameras for mounting various accessories and cages. All cameras have built-in fans for heat dissipation. The FX30 and FX3 share the same NPF FZ100 battery, while the FX6 uses the bigger BPU35 batteries. Now the top panels are quite different between these cameras. They both sport 2 XLR inputs, but the FX6's handle has additional camera control functions. I think this is a huge win for the FX6, and it's worth mentioning that the FX6 handle is way more robust. I've actually heard of the FX3 and FX30's handle breaking because it was supporting too much weight. The FX6 has the best LCD screen between these three cameras at 2.76 million dots, and it's 3.5 inches compared to the FX3 and FX30 screen at 3 inches. The FX30 isn't too far behind with 2.36 million dots, while the FX3 has the worst screen of 1.44 million dots. The FX30 is the only camera out of the three that has a different sensor. It has an APS-C sensor, while the FX3 and FX6 have full frame sensors. The FX30 has 26 effective megapixels, while the FX30 and FX6 have 10.2 effective megapixels. This difference gives the FX3 and FX6 an advantage when it comes to low light, but we'll talk more about that later. The APS-C sensor on the FX30 gives a 1.5 times crop when comparing to full frame sensors. The FX30 and FX3 both have 5-axis in-body image stabilization, while the FX6 doesn't have any. This is a great advantage when filming handheld. You get that extra bit of stability. Now I want to show you some comparison shots between these three cameras so that you can see the difference in quality for yourself. All cameras can pretty much internally film the same resolutions up to UHD 4K 120 frames per second, but the FX30 has a crop factor of 1.6 and the FX3 of 1.1 times. The FX6 also has a 10% crop when filming in 4K 120 frames per second. The FX6 has a slight advantage of being able to record DCI 4K up to 60 frames per second. Let's look at these cameras side by side with the same resolution, focal length, and settings. What do you think about the quality between these three? Let me know in the comment section below. When it comes to autofocus, pretty much all these cameras are perfect. Sony dominates the autofocus game. I've had no issues with focusing at all. Regarding dynamic range, the FX30 is the worst at 14 stops, while the FX3 and FX6 have 15 stops of dynamic range, but even with 14, it's incredible. These cameras have so much flexibility. My favorite profile that all these cameras come with is S-Log3. This gives you the most flexibility in post. They also come equipped with Sony's S-Cinetone profile. This is the cinema profile that comes straight out of the camera, looks really good, and doesn't require much grading. Now I want to talk about low light. This could be the deciding factor as to which camera you will buy. The FX3 and FX6 absolutely destroy most cameras out there when it comes to low light. Both of these have their high base ISO at 12,800. This allows you to film with little light available and still produces a nice clean image. The FX30 is still pretty good in low light. It has its high base ISO at 2,500. If you have enough available light, the FX30 will perform really well, but the FX3 and FX6 absolutely crush it in low light. The menu system on the Sony FX30 and FX3 is the same. It's a mixture of the Sony Alpha and Cine menu style. And the FX6 has a totally different menu system. It's very cinema focused and is really easy to use. The FX6 is the only camera of the three that has waveforms. This makes it a superior cinema camera for many, but all cameras share other video specific features such as focus peaking and zebras. Notably, it also has shutter angle, which is a huge win. I really wish the FX30 and FX3 had this. I really don't understand why they don't. I hope Sony adds it in future firmware, so this makes it a superior camera in that regard as well. Now the FX30 and FX6 both have breathing compensation. This is a unique and really helpful feature. The FX3 lacks this. The FX6 is the only camera with internal ND filters. It also has a sweet feature where you can use it as a variable ND. I wish the FX30 and FX3 had internal NDs. I understand why they don't because they're such small cameras, so it's really nice that this is included with the FX6. Now, a massive deciding factor as to which camera is the right one for you will come down to price. The difference in price between these cameras is quite significant. The FX30 is $1,800 US, while the FX3 is $39 and the FX6 is $6,000. I do believe these cameras are priced accurately according to their capabilities and specs, but depending on your line of work, even if you do have a bigger budget, one of the cheaper options may be more suitable for you. Now, deciding which camera is right for you may be easier than you think. Now, I've gone through the motions before trying to find which is the best camera for me, going through all the specs and whatever, but what it does come down to, which camera is best suitable for your line of work. Though you could use any of these cameras in any line of work, the technology is great, the quality is awesome. I do think each one is specific for a different type of work. If you're a content creator, influencer, vlogger, travel filmmaker, I think the FX30 is the best for you. Of course, you can use this camera for client work, but it is small, has an APS-C size sensor, which means you can buy the cheaper APS-C lenses for it. If you're on a budget, this camera is definitely the right one for you. The FX3 is my preferred camera. For my line of work, I usually do weddings, so this is the perfect lightweight setup with incredible specs. I love how small this camera is. It's super lightweight, and weddings are super fast paced and you don't really always have those times to faff around with your settings. So being able to capture what's going on quickly, I think this camera is perfect for that. This camera is also great for most other types of videography as well. When I think of what the FX6 is best suited for, immediately what comes to mind is documentaries. This is the perfect documentary camera. It has all the cinema features to work quickly and efficiently. This camera is definitely overkill for weddings, but if you're doing commercial work, brand work, this camera is a perfect fit for you. Well, that is everything for today, guys. I hope that answered some of your questions. If you have any other ones at all, let me know in the comments section below. I didn't cover absolutely everything about these cameras. I do believe each one deserves its own extensive review, but I hope that this video was helpful. I've linked these cameras and all my favorite gear in the description below. Make sure that you like and subscribe, turn notifications on, and I'll see you in the next video. Guys, don't sleep on the Sony FX30. People are passing up this camera because it's not full frame and totally disregarding that it's actually incredible. If you're new to the cinema camera world, the FX30 is the perfect entry. I've been using it extensively since I got it, and my A7S III is starting to collect dust. Now don't get me wrong, the A7S III is amazing and I'm not denying that, but the FX30 is half the price and can easily keep up. This is why I'm considering selling my A7S III and buying another FX30. Oh, my name is Jonah August. I'm a wedding filmmaker based in Canada, and I'm happy that you're here. So I want to go right into a full review of this camera. Yes, it's quite similar to the FX3, but it does have some features that the FX3 does not possess. First, let's start off talking about the compact form of the FX30's body. This camera is tiny, especially considering it's a cinema camera. We usually imagine cinema cameras being these huge setups, completely rigged out. And yes, you can do that with this camera, but at its bare bones, it's extremely small. I find this to be a pro because in my line of work, having a lighter setup is actually more beneficial. As a wedding cinematographer, it's nice to skip out on wrist pain. This camera weighs only 1 pound, 3.8 ounces. Like the FX3, the FX30 is weather sealed. It's really important for me to have a camera that is weather sealed. I live on the west coast of Canada and it rains a lot here. Now I can film outside in many different conditions and I don't have to worry about this camera. I suggest not to be careless with it though, but for the most part, it should have no issues. There are a bunch of custom function buttons littered all around this camera body. This is super important for filmmaking. You can set all your necessary tools to the custom buttons. The FX30 pretty much gives you the ability to set any button to whatever setting you like. Have you ever found yourself filming and everything's going great, looking amazing, then once you're done your shot, you realize that you weren't filming at all? Well, fortunately, this body has tally lights all around the camera so that you know that you are recording for sure. You can also set the screen to highlight red around the border so that you know you're recording at all times. I love that this camera has a full-size HDMI, even though it's a tiny, inexpensive cinema camera. This is more sturdy than a micro HDMI, and if you bump your cord, you don't have to worry as much that it breaks off within your camera. The swivel screen is great for filming at different angles and for vlogging. Not only that, but the quality of the screen is a huge upgrade from the FX3. The screen boasts 2.36 million dots in comparison to the FX3's 1.44 million dots. I really like the menu system that Sony has come out with on all their new cameras. It's laid out well and is really easy to navigate, and they have this new swipe up feature to access your main settings quickly. The 5-axis in-body image stabilization of this camera is pretty decent. It's not incredible by any means, but it does do a good job. I previously shot on Panasonic and they are the kings in regards to IBIS. Such smooth footage. I initially felt like this was a setback moving to Sony's IBIS, but it's just because I was so privileged with Panasonic's. My preferred way of filming is with active stabilization turned on. Yes, it crops in a little bit, but it helps smooth out my footage when shooting handheld. You can record for quite a long time with the FX30. It gets an extra 30 minutes in comparison to the FX3. Under the right conditions, you can record up to 175 minutes on one single battery. Biggest gripe that people have with the FX30 is its APS-C sensor. I understand people's complaints, totally understandable, but once you see the image that comes out of this camera, I don't think you'll really care about its smaller sensor anymore. For filming, it has approximately 20.1 effective megapixels, and for taking photos, it has 26 effective megapixels. Sony did not hold back with its dual card slots. It can take 2 SD cards or 2 CF Express Type A cards. Unlike the FX3, you can purchase the FX30 with or without the XLR top handle. I really like the versatility of this handle. It's quite incredible. I don't want to go deep into talking about it. It could take quite a while, but I think it's a great addition to your FX30. The FX30 can record up to 4K, 422, 10-bit, 120 frames per second. This is quite remarkable for a camera priced so low. Also, the amazing thing about this is that the 4K image from the FX30 oversamples from a 6K image, which means that it actually provides more detail than the FX3 and the A7S III. My favorite profile to shoot on the FX30 is S-Log3. This is the most flexible profile you'll get with this camera, and it gives you the ability to manipulate the image. I film all of my weddings with this profile, and there isn't much I'm not able to do with it. Another popular profile on this camera is S-Cinetone. This is Sony's cinematic profile, and it doesn't need much tweaking. It's great for fast turnarounds when you don't really want to worry much about color grading. If you want to get the most dynamic range possible, you have to film in S-Log3. The FX30 has 14 plus stops of dynamic range, slightly worse than the FX3, but this is still quite good. It does a really good job at recovering the highlights and a pretty decent job with the shadows as well. Now the autofocus is absolutely immaculate. It nails it every time. I really never have to worry about missing focus. Don't really have much to say about it except it's amazing. Now an upgrade from the FX3, this camera has focus mapping. This feature is really cool and helps you nail focus, especially when you're focusing manually. The colored part of the image shows what's out of focus and the other part is what's in focus. When pulling and racking focus, this camera has lens breathing compensation. This feature definitely elevates the quality of your shot. This camera will probably never overheat on you as long as you set the auto power off temp to high. For my line of work, filming ceremonies and speeches, that can go on for a long time, over an hour sometimes, and I never have to worry about this camera overheating on me. Having this built-in fan makes a huge difference. I recently made a video testing the Sony Catalyst Brow Stabilization. The FX30 records gyro data so that you can stabilize this footage perfectly in post. It is a bit time consuming, but it's a sweet option to have. This camera has dual base ISO at 800 and 2500 when filming in S-Log3. And in S-Cinetone, it's 125 and 400. Sure, this camera does not compare at all to the FX30 or A7S III. Those cameras are absolutely phenomenal in low light, but it's still great to have that second dual base at 2500. I went out and did an early morning low light test with this camera at 2500 ISO, and the image was quite clean. Lastly, this camera is dirt cheap. It's an absolute steal. $1,800 US and you get all these specs jam-packed into this camera. This is an absolute steal. I'm actually quite tempted to sell my A7S III and get another FX3 and a lens. I could actually confidently film weddings with just the FX30. If I had a 3 FX30 camera setup, it would do really well. I think we're really privileged with tech these days. Such a low cost, we're getting incredible quality. Now there are a few things about this camera I didn't get to. If there's anything specific you want to know, let me know in the comment section below. This video is just a general overview of the main specifications of the Sony FX30. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about it, if you own one already or if you're going to pick one up. Thanks so much for watching, liking, and subscribing. Don't forget to turn your notifications on, and I'll see you in the next video. What's going on, guys? I'm about to head outside and film a side-by-side test comparison video of the FX3 and the FX30. This is going to be a blind test. I'm going to label each video as A and B, and I want to know what you guys think each camera is in the comment section below, and at the end I'll do a final reveal. Hey guys, today I have a video about one of my favorite medium telephoto lenses for the Sony FX30, which is the Tamron 35 to 150mm f2 to 2.8 variable aperture lens. Soon I'll be releasing another video about my favorite zoom lens on the wider side, which is the Sigma 18 to 50mm f2 lens. So make sure that you like and subscribe and turn those notifications on so that you don't miss it. So this morning I went out and filmed a sequence with this lens so that you can see the quality that it produces on the FX30. So let's take a look at that before we jump right in. So what do you guys think? Let me know what you think about the quality in the comment section below. Now, as you may already know, this Tamron 35 to 150mm is a full frame lens. But Sony is innovative and have made all their newer cameras with the same lens mount. This E-mount provides the ability to use their lenses interchangeably on their full frame and APS-C sensor cameras. Because the Sony FX30 has an APS-C sensor, it crops in 1.5 times when compared to full frame cameras. This means that the Tamron 35 to 150mm turns into a 52.5 to 225mm lens. This range is quite incredible and outperforms the ever so popular 70 to 200mm full frame lenses in regards to reach. It's wider on the wide end and longer on the long end, making it more versatile. Now, the most impressive thing about this lens is that it starts at f2 at 52.5mm. As you zoom in, it changes to f2.8 at 123mm. At the time of recording this video, this lens costs $1,900 US, which is a bit more expensive than the FX3 itself, which is $1,800 US. I know it may sound like a lot of money, but if you buy the FX30 and this Tamron lens, it's still cheaper than buying an FX3 on its own. At this exact moment, the FX3 costs $3,900. Of course, the FX3 is a bit better in some circumstances, and that is why it costs so much more, but I could argue that the FX30 is almost just as good in a lot of ways. I'll be making a video about this soon, giving my advice on which camera I think is a better buy. Now, I have made a full in-depth video about this lens. It'll provide you a lot more detail, so I'll inlay that video now. How's it going, guys? Today I have the highly sought after brand new lens from Tamron, the 35 to 150mm f2 to 2.8 variable aperture cinematic beast of a lens. I'm so stoked to be reviewing this lens. That's an understatement. Honestly, I've been wanting to try this lens for so long. But before we go any further, check out these cinematic test shots filmed with this lens.
I can't erase you. I can't erase you. Now I could stay here, so why don't we wait? Why don't you stay the same? What is it I ever want? Now I could stay here, so why don't we wait? Why don't you stay the same? I don't wanna lie to you.
Wow, this lens. Honestly, what can I say? I think this may be the best zoom lens that I've ever tried. I know that's a lofty claim to make, but who has created a lens like this? At 35mm you get f2, and then it ends at 150mm with f2.8? That's unheard of. No one's done this. Like, it's insane. I'm so stoked. The quality is just absolutely beautiful, so nice. Now in this video, I'm gonna break down everything that you need to know. But before we continue, hit those like and subscribe buttons. I'm gonna be making a bunch more videos specifically about this lens, so I'm gonna need you guys to follow along. I think Tamron did a really good job at appeasing cinematographers from all different industries, from weddings, events, branding, travel, lifestyle, commercial. This lens is designed to be an all-around hitter. So I'm really excited to break down its features. Oh, and if I haven't mentioned it yet, my name is Jonah August. I'm one half of The August. My wife Rebecca is the other half. We own a wedding, photography, and videography business in British Columbia, Canada. We absolutely love what we do, so if you want to follow our wedding work, make sure you check us out on Instagram at The August. And if you want to see any of our lifestyle and gear related content, follow my personal Instagram at Jonah Raven August. Okay, so I'm about to jump into this review, but before I do, I just need to give you a quick disclaimer. I was given this lens from Amplus to review. They are Canada's leading photographic supplier and Tamron Canada's distributor, but nor them or Tamron will be seeing this review before you. So I'm going to give my complete, honest opinion about this lens. And to be honest, this might be my new favorite lens. If you couldn't tell already, I'm pretty stoked about it. So let's jump right in. Talking about the build, Tamron has really upped their game. This lens is well constructed and feels just as good as any premium Sony lens. The zoom and focus ring have a good balance of resistance and easeability. I really don't like when lens rings turn too easily. Sigma does a really good job at keeping some great resistance throughout their lens lineup, but some Sony lenses are just way too easy to turn. The 24-105, it feels just odd turning it so easily. Took a while to get used to. I mean, it does have its perks if you want to change your focus really quick, but I like to have that little bit of resistance because it just feels more controlled. This Tamron lens has the perfect balance of both, and the zoom ring is sturdy enough that the focal length won't change apart from your will. Tamron added this lock button at 35mm, which is really great for transporting the lens. It's also especially important if you're going to put a matte box on this lens and want to keep the lens fixed at 35mm. Like most good lenses, there's an autofocus and manual focus switch. As you can see by looking at this lens, it has a bunch of custom features. It has a 3-way custom switch and 3 custom buttons. This little USB-C port connects to Tamron's lens utility so that you can customize these buttons and switches to exactly how you want them to be. Now, to properly explain this feature, I'd have to make a whole nother video talking about Tamron's lens utility. So if you want me to make that video, let me know in the comment section below. This lens hood conveniently locks into place. One of my favorite features about this lens is its weather sealing. Tamron didn't hold back with this lens's weather sealing. It has 11-point sealing, and the USB-C port is also weather sealed. As a cinematographer on the west coast of Canada, it rains here a lot, and I hate using those plastic rain covers. So having gear that is waterproof or water resistant really makes a world of a difference. So the fact that this lens does good in wet and damp conditions is a huge win for me. If for some reason you're worried about getting water into the USB-C port, you can buy those little USB-C caps for extra peace of mind, but honestly I don't think you really need them. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. You may already know this just by looking at the lens, or if you've watched other reviews, that it's quite heavy and it is a pretty big lens. The length of this lens is 6.2 inches and its weight is just over 2.5 pounds. Now I know some of you are going to be worried about the weight of this lens. It's going to be too heavy for you. But if you're a shooter that likes to rig up your camera, having that weight actually will help keep your footage more stable. But you have to look at it like this. Think about the versatility you get with this lens. 35 to 150mm starting at f2, ending at f2.8. Sure, it's heavy, sure, it's big, but all the stuff that you can capture with just one lens makes up for that weight and size. So the filter thread size on this lens is 82mm. This is actually my favorite filter thread size. I always suggest getting an 82mm or even one that's bigger. I made the mistake before when I first started filmmaking. I got a filter that fit the lens I had at the time, and the filter thread size was 72mm. Now when I started upgrading my kit and getting bigger lenses, that variable ND filter no longer fit it. So now I had to buy some new ones. So it's always a good idea, get the bigger size to start, and then you can use step up, step down rings or whatever just to connect it to your other lenses. Okay, let's move on to the image quality and video capabilities. Starting with autofocus, let's see how good this lens does. The settings I'm using in camera are continuous autofocus with eye tracking turned on, transition speed at 7, which is fast, and subject shift sensitivity is at 5, which is responsive. I made these settings extremely snappy intentionally just for review purposes. Usually people don't film this way, but this will give us a good gauge at how quick this lens does in autofocus. Let's take a look at all of the major focal lengths. Let's start at 35. and 50. $85. $100. $135. And $150. Like I mentioned before, this is a variable aperture lens. So as you're zooming in, the shallowest depth of field you can get changes depending on the focal length. Let's take a look at when the aperture changes at which focal length and how they compare to one another. Now, even if this lens was constant at f2.8, it would be an amazing lens. The fact that you can get f2 on the wider end is quite amazing. Okay, let's talk about bokeh. Having this shallow depth of field creates a beautiful bokeh at all focal lengths. I think it's really important to have a lens that can shoot as shallow as possible. Yes, you can go even shallower with prime lenses, but then you're not getting this type of focal range. I know that some of you may be thinking that f2 isn't enough. I personally think it's quite great. I generally film at f2.8 throughout a wedding day. I really don't think you'll be missing out on much with this lens. Especially if you mix f2.8 at 100mm, you're gonna get a mix of nice creamy bokeh with compression in the background, and it'll create a really nice dreamy look. Moving on to sharpness, the Tamron 35 to 150mm lens is great from 35 to 150. It stays quite sharp between the whole focal range. Now, it's not so sharp that it's unpleasant to look at. Some images are too sharp and they look unnatural to the eye. The Tamron is a perfect balance of being sharp yet still film-like looking. Now, before I got this lens, I heard that it was parfocal, and that really intrigued me considering that most parfocal lenses cost quite a bit of money. Some lenses require you to refocus after you change the focal length, but with this lens, you almost don't have to refocus at all. Now, let's talk about stabilization. This lens doesn't have optical stabilization. Would it be better if it did? Most definitely. I was concerned about this because I'm so used to using my 24 to 105mm lens that has OSS built in, but this one doesn't have it at all. But after doing some tests with the A7 III's 5-axis image stabilization with active stab turned on, the footage looked quite stable. I actually think having a little bit of movement and shakiness makes the shot look more natural in some circumstances, but if you need to stabilize your footage, you can always do that in post. Let's talk about lens flares. Some people love them, some people hate them. I think they're really cool for some specific shots, but I can understand why they can get quite overwhelming. One of my favorite things about cinematography is that you can evoke so many different types of emotions from your audience, and I think that having sun flares can do that exact thing, make your audience feel like you're in a dream-like state. Yes, most definitely some sun flares look disgusting. They can have weird tints, weird colors, and just look like garbage overall, but when it's done right, it can be really pleasant to the eye, and I think this Tamron 35 to 150mm does it right. Manual focus with this lens is a breeze. If you use focus peaking with your camera, you'll have no trouble pulling and racking focus with this lens. What about focus breathing? Well, here's the great thing about this lens. Take a look at these shots and you'll see that there is only minimal focus breathing going on. Alright guys, that is my review of the Tamron 35 to 150mm f2 to 2.8 variable aperture lens. I hope that was all the information that you wanted to know and that it was helpful. In my opinion, this lens is perfect for all types of videographers in all different industries. For me, generally being a wedding videographer, this lens is perfect for me. Unfortunately, I do have to return this lens because I just have it for review purposes, but I'm gonna put my order in right away. Why I think this lens is perfect for wedding videographers is because we don't have the time to keep swapping out lenses all day. Weddings are usually fast paced, and if you have the ability to just keep one lens on the whole time, that's absolutely perfect. And we love to get those bokeh-licious shots, so having f2 to 2.8 is perfect for that. And being able to let more light in at f2 is really great for those low light situations. Let me know if you can relate. If you work primarily in other industries, I want you to let me know if you think this lens is perfect for your type of work. All right guys, so what do you think about this lens? I'm still really stoked on it. I think it's a perfect match for the Sony FX30. Given that range, you can't really find anything else like it on the market. Please let me know if you have any questions about this lens and I'll make sure to answer in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. What's going on guys? I'm here with Matt Tracy. Check out his channel. We're filming a little sequence with the Sigma f1.4 Trio APS-C lenses with the Sony FX30. Super stoked about it. I'm gonna be switching between these lenses to get a variety of different shots. So let's roll this quick cinematic video and then I'll break down each shot.
Sit down, let's talk. Sit down, let's talk. What's the rush? What's the rush? Trippy colors and patterns.
Back at home, Jonah here. What do you guys think about that test video? I'm quite impressed with the sharpness of these lenses, but there is one potential drawback that I'll get to later. So let's talk about the lens I use for each one of these shots and my opinion on them, and then we'll get into a bit more of a review of the 16, 30, and 56mm lenses from Sigma. Oh, and a massive thanks to Sigma Canada for sending these over. All right, let's jump right in. First, I'm using the 16mm here at f1.4. Starting off with a nice opening shot looking over the river. I like using the 16mm for this shot because it's quite a wide field of view. I move on to this portrait shot of Matt looking out. The bokeh is really nice at f1.4. Now it's always important to get some environment shots to help establish the location for the viewer. As you can see in these next few shots, I'm slightly moving to add a bit of motion. I find this makes the shots a bit more dynamic. Now this last shot with the 16mm was achieved only because of how wide this lens is. Moving on to the 30mm at f1.4, this is a nice focal length for some following shots. I can stand at a comfortable distance away from my subject while still getting stable footage. I love this next shot, but here's where my first gripe comes in. The chromatic aberration around my subject is quite noticeable. Nonetheless, I'm still quite happy with how the 30mm performs. Now the 56mm f1.4 punches in quite a bit more. I love this because the bokeh looks so nice with the compression the lens produces. It's a bit more difficult to keep the image stable with this focal length, but with a steady hand you can get nice handheld footage. As you see these detailed shots of the bag, you can notice how I can stand a bit away from Matt and get these nice tight shots. I want to talk about compression again for a sec. As you see, all the parts of the image that aren't in focus seem larger than on the other lenses. Notice it in this river shot. I end this video with a nice portrait again. Okay, let me show you these lenses side by side. The 16mm is the largest and weighs 405 grams, the 30mm weighs 265 grams, and the 56mm is the smallest of the three and weighs 280 grams. Here's the price difference between these lenses. The 16mm costs $374 US, 30mm, 264 US dollars, and the 56mm, 404 US dollars. Now my favorite of these three lenses is the 16mm. It's a little bit bigger, easier to handle when shooting handheld footage. Optically, these lenses look pretty much the same. They're all quite sharp. Now talking about that potential drawback, the main thing I noticed that I didn't like about these lenses, but specifically on the 30mm, was chromatic aberration. Now it may have just been how backlit my subject was when I filmed on the 30mm that produced this, so can't exactly speak the same about the other two lenses. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, but overall this is a great kit for the Sony FX30 or whatever APS-C camera that you have. This whole kit will only cost you around $1,000 US dollars, which is incredibly cheap for three lenses. And these lenses all have an incredible aperture range. Being able to shoot at f1.4 is really important in low light scenarios. Now, if you haven't seen it already, my absolute favorite APS-C lens is the Sigma 18 to 50mm f2.8. I've made a video about it already, using it specifically with FX30, so make sure you check it out. Well, that is everything for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, liking, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, I put out a poll yesterday asking which FX30 video that you would like to see next, and a majority of you chose the best zoom lens for the FX30. So today I have my favorite APS-C zoom lens, the Sigma 18 to 50mm f2.8. When I was researching what lens to pair with my FX30, I knew that it had to be a zoom lens. I need that type of versatility for wedding filmmaking. I knew that it had to be wide enough for tighter spaces, and I knew that it had to zoom in far enough to capture my subject from a far distance. I also needed at least f2.8 so that it would do well in low light and create nice bokeh. I found that the Sigma 18 to 50mm seemed to fit the requirements that I had, and after using this lens for quite a while, I can confidently say that this is the best zoom lens for the Sony FX30. I've also already made a video about the best zoom lens on the telephoto side for this camera. Make sure to check out that video as well. But my name is Jonah August. I'm a wedding filmmaker based in Canada, and I'm happy that you're here. This will be a relatively quick video. I don't want to spend too much time on things that aren't that important, so let's jump right into this. First, talking about the build quality, this small lens is built quite well. As you see, this lens is tiny. It's 2.4 by 3 inches in size and weighs only 290 grams. The zoom and focus rings have a nice amount of resistance and feel really good in hand. Now the Sigma 18 to 50mm is weather resistant to some extent and should do all right in some rainy and dusty conditions. Mainly the gasket is sealed against moisture and dust. I have used this lens in rainy conditions and I had no issues with it, but I wouldn't suggest pushing this too far. It has a filter thread size of 55mm to mount on any filter that you like. Now the image quality is superb. I am super happy with how it performs. I've made quite a few test videos with it and I really like how they've turned out. The autofocus is pretty much perfect. Even though this isn't a Sony lens, paired with the FX30's autofocus capabilities, this lens nails focus almost all the time. I actually have yet to experience a scenario where the autofocus was off. This lens has an aperture range of f2.8 to 22, which gives you the ability to film in low light and creates nice, beautiful looking bokeh. Take a look at the bokeh in some of these shots. This lens is actually extremely sharp. For some of you, that'll be a really good thing. For myself personally, I like to have a little bit of a softer image, so I usually mount a mist filter onto this lens to take off that digital edge and produce a more filmic look. I'll link the Pro Mist filter that I use in the description below. One gripe that people may have with this lens is that it's not optically stabilized. Sure, it'd be really nice to have it, but the way I film, I usually just turn on active stabilization, and that helps smooth things out when filming handheld. If you are worried about it, you can throw this lightweight setup on a gimbal, no problem. Now, I don't think people will be using this lens for manual focus. I don't that often myself. It is all right for manual focusing, but the focus ring is so tiny. I also wish that the zoom and focus ring were swapped like it is on my Tamron 35 to 150mm, but if you do plan on manual focusing with this lens, it will do the job. So can you vlog with this lens? If you are a vlogger, this lens does a pretty good job. At 18mm, it is wide enough, but I think that's because I have long arms. If you need extra bit of reach, just attach a vlogging pod to it. The best thing about this lens is the price. It costs only $500 US dollars. The closest full frame equivalent, the Sigma 24 to 70mm, cost $1,050 US dollars. This lens is less than half the cost of that one. So who is this lens for? If you need a versatile, small, lightweight setup, this lens is perfect for you. I find that it works really well for wedding and travel videography. You can use this lens in pretty much any type of videography, but it really shines in those two areas. Well, that is everything for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what other FX30 videos you want to see in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video. How's it going, guys? Jonah August here. I'm outside filming a little test video today with the Sony FX30 and a Canon vintage lens. It's older than me. Don't know exactly how old, at least 30 years old, maybe, could be 40 years old, a little bit older than that. But I want to test the quality. I took it out last night, Valentine's Day. Filmed a little bit of my wife and my dog. I didn't want to take away from the moment too much, so I didn't film a whole lot, but I'll show you some of those test videos now. And yes, now I'm out here. It's a beautiful morning. The sun is shining. I want to do a couple more test shots. I want to get some video shots, some photo shots, test the quality of this lens. I think it's a really great option that we can buy old lenses for a super cheap price and add them onto our higher end cameras and get some really interesting results. Today I'm using the Canon 50mm f1.4 lens. This is an FD mount lens, so I got an adapter and put it on my Sony FX30. Given that the FX30 is a 1.5 times crop sensor, it makes this 50mm a 75mm lens. Hence why I'm sitting at quite a distance from the camera, hoping that I'm in focus. Really, it's hard to tell with the little screen being so far away. I don't have a monitor mounted onto this camera right now. But I want to take you on the journey. This is going to be a chill video, throw on some music, show you some example footage, some example photos, and I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about it. I'm currently searching for a Helios 442 lens. Those are super popular right now. I'm gonna pick one up, do some more tests with the FX30. I think that's a great option. But yeah, this is just a little video. I wanna prove that you don't really need to spend thousands of dollars on lenses for this camera. That is, if you are okay with filming manually. Yes, Sony has incredible autofocus, the best out there, but there's something totally different about filming manually. You can get a certain type of look, how the focus goes in and out. It's just kind of more of a natural, organic look. And yeah, you can do that with the $20 lens. So let's test out this vintage lens. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Everything is graded with the August Lutz Collection 1, which is coming out March 1st. I'm super stoked about it. And I'm so excited that so many of you have signed up for the early release. They're gonna come out a few days early, and I'm gonna give you guys an exclusive discount. So if you haven't signed up already, go to the description of this video and sign up there. All right, guys, let's jump right into this. Well, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you found that enjoyable, and let me know if you're gonna get a vintage lens yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. How's it going? Today I have the much requested video by you guys, which is the Sony FX30 for wedding videography. Now, many of you already know that I love this camera. I've made several videos about it already. I think at this point I have over 25 FX30 videos. So if you want to learn more about this camera, make sure you check out my FX30 playlist. Now, a little while ago, I put out a video of me searching for the best camera for wedding videography. I had many sleepless nights, but I eventually found the perfect wedding camera, which was the Sony FX30. At that time, I wrote out a bunch of characteristics of the ideal wedding videography camera, and the FX30 came out on top. Fast forward to more recently, and the FX30 was announced. I was hoping that this camera would replace my C-Cam, which was the Sony ZV-1, and after reading all these specs, I was amazed at how much Sony packed into a small, affordable camera. So I sold my ZV-1, picked up this camera, and I have not looked back. Quickly, I found out that the Sony FX30 was more than just a C-Cam. After a while, I felt that I could confidently record a wedding on just FX30s. Now, before we go any further, there are two videos that I would like to mention. Make sure that you watch those before you continue watching this one. One of them is 7 reasons why you should choose the FX30 over the FX3. I go over a few updates that came out with this camera that outperform the FX3. The other video is a comparison between the FX30, the FX3, and the FX6. This gives good details about the differences between these 3 cameras. So take a moment and pause this video, go watch those 2, and then I'll see you right back here. Okay, so if you've just watched those 2 videos, I'll proceed to talk about this camera specifically for wedding filmmaking. Let's go through some of the great characteristics of the FX30 and how they are important for wedding videography. First thing, the camera body is so compact. It doesn't even have an EVF. Yes, in one sense, it's nice to have some weight for stability, but I think this small body is perfect for weddings when you're filming all day long. This will definitely save your wrists long term because this camera only weighs 646 grams. Another great thing about this camera is that it's weather sealed. Where I live, it rains a lot, and having a camera that can withstand the elements is super important. I've taken this camera out in the rain and snow and it's held up remarkably. Now, the image quality of the FX30 is where things get exciting. It's almost unbelievable that this camera can record up to 4K 422 10-bit, 124 frames per second, being that it's so inexpensive. I can easily use it paired with my FX3 and A7S3, and you almost can't even tell the difference in quality. Now, in my opinion, it is super important to film weddings in a log profile, and this camera comes with Sony's S-Log3. This profile is quite versatile, and I can manipulate the image however I like, and it gives me the ability to achieve that exact look that I'm desiring. Now, it has 14 stops of dynamic range, which is pretty great. The battery life is awesome. You can record over 2 hours on one single battery. This is great so you don't have to swap out a million batteries on wedding day. One of the most important things for a good wedding video camera is having dual card slots. I really cannot stress this enough. You should always be recording 2 copies at a time. Thankfully, the FX30 has dual card slots. You can use SD cards or CF Express Type A cards. Now, I film all my weddings handheld. This is the way that I've always done it. The FX30 comes with 5-axis in-body image stabilization, which makes your footage more stable when filming handheld. Now, Sony's autofocus is absolutely incredible. It never misses focus. Even using third-party lenses such as the Sigma 18 to 50mm that I always keep on this camera, it never misses focus. It nails it every time. Previously to switching to Sony, I was on the Panasonic GH5. As everyone knows, the autofocus sucked in that camera, so I got really comfortable filming handheld, but once I moved to Sony and had good autofocus, I found this really helpful. Especially when the bride is walking down the aisle, just having that perfect focus, tracking her all the way down is perfect. I love that this camera has tally lights and ensures that you're recording when you want to be. Another important thing is that this camera will not overheat. It has fans built into the body. You really can't afford to have your camera overheat and miss a moment at a wedding. Okay, there are just a few more things I want to mention about this camera. It has a full-size HDMI, which is way better than those micro HDMI cables that are flimsy and break off. This is great when connecting your on-camera monitor. It has an excellent swivel screen that's actually better than the FX3. The XLR top handle provides some great audio options. And best of all, at the time of recording this video, the Sony FX30 cost $1,800 US. So guys, there are all my reasons why I think this is the best budget cinema camera for wedding filmmaking. I'd say a close second, but I haven't tested it out. It actually might even be better, is the Panasonic Lumix S5 Mark II. It just came out. I haven't gotten the opportunity to use it yet, but I would like to do a video of it in the future comparing it to the FX30, but that camera seems like it would be a really good option for wedding filmmaking as well. Now, there are more things that I could talk about regarding the FX30. I hope you find more information in my other FX30 videos, but if you have any questions at all, let me know in the comment section below. I've linked my gear in the description. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.
Nice, eh?
This is nice. I really like this spot. Can you please
You like this
remember
one?
this?
Yeah. I love you,
Okay.
and I love our family. And starting from today, I want to love you. I want to respect you, cherish our moments, and move forward from whatever past we've had. I love you so much, and I want you to be mine forever. I want to be a part of you, a part of me, 100%. And I'm all in, ride or die.
Right about. Okay. I love you too. Oh my god!
Will you marry me?
I can't believe this! Wow, you're crazy! Oh, puppy, I love it!
It's done. You like it?
Yes, 1,000 times.
Okay, after.
Hey guys, today I want to talk about how to expose S-Log3 footage for perfect skin tones on the Sony FX30. This video also applies to other Sony cameras such as the FX3, A7 IV, A7S III, and so on. There are many different tools you could use to reach the same result, but I'm going to show you what I found to be the easiest. And by the way, my name is Jonah August. I'm a wedding filmmaker. My wife is a wedding photographer. We're so happy that you're watching this video, and we thank you for your support. So I take the approach of overexposing my S-Log3 footage. There's a debate going on whether you should or shouldn't. The reason that I do is so that I can have cleaner shadows. I don't like seeing a lot of noise in my shadows, and if you underexpose S-Log3 footage, you'll definitely notice it. And sure, you could clean that up in post later on, but I'd rather avoid that. Also, I don't have to really worry when I overexpose S-Log3 footage because it recovers the highlights quite well. Now, my preferred tool for exposing skin tones is zebras. I find this to work the best for documenting live events. Weddings can be fast-paced, and I don't always have time to faff around with settings, so using this tool, I can expose perfectly every time. And I always expose for skin tones. This is the most important part of the image when filming humans. I'll show you guys how I set up zebras on the FX30. Okay, what you're gonna want to do is click your menu button. Once you're in your menu, scroll down to exposure and color, and then scroll down again to number 6, which is zebra display. Turn your zebra display on, And your zebra level, set that to 70. I have this custom button set to zebra so I can toggle it on and off. Once this is set up and enabled, as you see, once I start overexposing, you can see zebra markings on the face. If I notice this, I just dial back, usually with my variable ND filter or sometimes with ISO or aperture. And it's as simple as that. Of course, if I'm not filming human subjects, I expose a bit differently. I just choose what is the most important part of the image and expose for that. Now let's jump into how I adjust the footage in post. I'm not gonna go deep into correcting and color grading in this video. I will put out a video in the near future about this, but I'm just gonna show you how I generally work with footage. I first apply a conversion LUT and then do my adjustments from there. You can use any conversion LUT for this or just download the standard Rec 709 Sony conversion LUT from their website. I then add some contrast, reduce the shadows, mids, and highlights, and usually change the hue and saturation of the yellows and greens. Well, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video. What's going on, guys? Today I am rigging out the Sony FX30. I'm going to show you a few different ways that you can do this. I won't be talking throughout the video, I'll just be giving you examples of the rigs that I use. I'll link the products in the description below and any other variation that you could use as well. If you have any questions at all, please ask in the comment section. So let's jump right into this. Hey guys, I just wanted to make a quick video about the best matte box for the Sony FX30. Now the FX30 is tiny and lightweight, and for the most part, I would like to keep it that way. Yes, you can fully rig out this camera. I have made a video about that already, so make sure you check it out. But for the main purpose of this setup, I would like to keep it small. It all comes down to why I think this matte box is the best for the Sony FX30. What I have here is the small rig mini matte box, and it is extremely small. It weighs 470 grams and feels like an absolute feather. It comes with a bunch of adapter rings, so it'll fit on whatever lens you have. You can use 4 by 5.65 filters with it, and the best part about this lens is that you can use circular filters with it. I can easily screw on my mist and variable ND filter. This is the only matte box that I would recommend using with a zoom lens. Typically, you wouldn't put a matte box directly on a zoom lens because there'd be too much pressure and weight, but this one being so light, it can easily mount onto a zoom lens without having to worry about it at all. And that is all guys, now you know why I think this is the best matte box for the Sony FX30. I've linked this in the description of this video, and please let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Shaking hands with the trees, make them tell them all their secrets like it's nothing. Carrying a smell of something sweet, got me running, make a beeline, drifting with the baseline.
Hey guys, I think I may have found the best camera cage for the Sony FX30. Now I've tried 3 different cages at this point for this camera, and this one is by far the most intuitive. There's one specific reason why it is, and we'll get to that shortly, but first let me introduce myself. My name is Jonah August. I'm a wedding filmmaker based in Vancouver, Canada, and I'm happy that you're here. Before I jump into reviewing this cage, a quick disclaimer, Ulanzi did send me this cage to review. Now I was already super happy with my small rig cage. I loved its design, its usability, it was great, but after trying this one, using it for a while, I found that I liked it just a bit more. Oh, and you probably already know this camera cage is designed both for the FX30 and the FX3. So let's jump into this. The design of this cage fits nice and snug to the FX30. I've had cages before that weren't snug to the camera. They're just way too bulky, and I hated the look of them. The color is grayish blue, which matches nicely with the camera, though it's not quite as gray as FX30's body. The cage itself is mounted by 3 1/4-inch screws, making it extremely secure, while the top plate is mounted by 2 screws. Let's talk about this top plate. This is the best top plate I've seen for this camera. Most other top plates I've tried cover the cold shoe, but this one protrudes in front of it, so you still have complete access. I love this design so much more. Right beside it, there's a cold shoe mount. Now, as you can see all over this cage, there's quick release support for an abundance of different accessories, such as this side handle from Fallcam. This side handle is super nice. It's just built so well. I love the gray stain of the wooden handle, and the grooves are nicely rounded. On top, it also has quick release support. Lastly, this camera also has a bunch of 1/4-inch mounting points, and it has this plate on the bottom which easily attaches your camera to tripods, monopods, or gimbals. And I'm going to assemble this cage from start to finish. Well guys, there's my short but sweet review of the Fallcam F22 and F38 quick release camera cage for the Sony FX30 and FX3. Now you guys know exactly why I think this is one of the best designed cages for the FX30 and FX3. It's just so much more practical and intuitive. It makes rigging out your camera so much easier. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, today I want to talk about using mist filters with the Sony FX30. Almost every video you've seen from me so far with this camera, I've used the Tiffin Black Pro Mist quarter strength filter. Because the FX30 is sharper than the FX3, it's nice to use a mist filter to diffuse the image and give an overall more filmic, softer look. Today I'll be talking about two different mist options from K&F Concept. I have the quarter strength square filter and I have their VND mist filter as well. K&F did send me these mist filters to try out. I'm pretty happy with how they perform, but before we jump right into this, take a look at this test video that I shot with them this morning.
I was king of the lonesome, but I gave up the throne. For what good is a kingdom when you rule all alone? All I want is your black hair spilling over my skin. Yes, I know I am ready to let the light in for the first time in a long time. Let it light in.
Let me know in the comment section what you thought of that test video, and let's jump right into this. Both these products come with nice cases to make sure that you don't scratch the glass. The square filter comes with a holder and adapter ring so that you can mount it onto whatever lens that you have. One downside to the VND mist filter is that it doesn't come with a lens cap. Many of the other options do come with a lens cap, which I think is a huge perk. The purpose of a mist filter is to diffuse the overall image and bloom the highlights. This produces a more filmic look by softening the entire image. These are really popular because it gives people's films a more natural look. Now, a variable ND filter controls the amount of light coming into the lens. This is super important if you want to set a certain frame rate, shutter speed, and ISO on your camera, but still want to control the amount of light hitting your sensor. To use these products, it's really simple. Starting with the square filter, you screw on the correct adapter ring for your lens, tighten on the holder, and then place the square filter into the holder. This holder is really great because it has another slot to add an ND filter if you like. Take a look at what the image looks like without the mist filter and then with it added. Moving on to the VND mist filter, you simply screw it on to the front of your lens. As you see, once I start turning the filter, it darkens the image, controlling how much light hits the lens. With this filter, you get 2 to 5 stops of coverage, and this is about the amount you need for everyday filming. So, should you get these products? I'd say yes if you're looking for some budget alternatives to some of the more expensive options out there. But if you do have the budget, it may be worth looking at some of the pricier options. I'll include some links to these products in the description below. Well, that is everything for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how you can change your frame rate on the Sony FX30 in just 1 second. Now there are 3 different options to change your frame rate. I'm going to go over each way, but I have found that one way works quicker than the rest. Oh, and my name is Jonah August. I'm a wedding filmmaker based in Canada, and I'm happy to have you here. Okay, let's first dive into the traditional way to change your frame rate. This first method you may be the most familiar with, and it involves you diving right into the menu. So click the menu button, scroll down to the shooting tab, choose image quality/record, scroll down to movie settings, click on record frame rate, and lastly, choose your desired frame rate. Now this way is a bit tedious, and I personally don't like using this method. You can also access this via main number 1. The next option you can go for is a slightly newer method. Sony came out with this on their recent firmware update for the FX3, but now with the FX30, it comes equipped right out of the box. All you have to do is swipe up on the display, click the frame rate button, and choose your desired frame rate. This is significantly faster than the previous method that I just showed you, but the last one I'm going to share with you is even quicker. Now this is my favorite way to change frame rates. I found this method to be the quickest and most efficient when shooting. It involves you attributing one of your custom buttons specifically to frame rates. This takes a moment to set up, but once you have it set up, you can access all your frame rates really quick. So go into your menu, scroll down to setup, click on dial customize, choose a video custom key/dial set, and for me, I set my custom button number 4, which is the number 2 option here, to record frame rate. You'll find this option in Image Quality/Record. Now that you have this set up, all you have to do is click your custom button number 4 and boom, in 1 second you have access to 24, 30, 60, and 124 frames per second in 4K, just like that. Well guys, thank you so much for watching this video on how to change frame rates quickly. I hope it was helpful, and please let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. I'll be putting out a full custom button video in the near future, so make sure that you subscribe and turn notifications on so that you don't miss it. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. How's it going guys? Jonah August here. Yesterday I was out filming with my friend Trevor doing a live acoustic session of one of his songs. We had an awesome time and I filmed everything on the Sony FX30. Now this camera did incredible, so today I'm going to do a little bit of a behind the scenes video talking about the shots I got, my reasoning behind them. Yeah, so let's roll quickly to the actual finished video and then I'll jump into behind the scenes.
been so long. Way out there, I am the background. I don't care. It's been so long. The times I took center stage, the times, but 15 minutes is out. All the rest in vain. I belong north of the 49th, where the freezing rain tempers the mind. I belong north of the 49th, to stand tall the test of time, as the canyon river and drive up north of the line. Unspoken news is for the birds to view in the sky. I belong here north of the 49th, where the melting snow hollows the eyes. I don't need no sunshine up north of the line.
What did you think of that video, guys? Do you think that the FX30 can hold its weight when it comes to recording live music videos? If you think yes, let me know in the comment section below. If you think no, let me know as well. All right, let's jump right into this behind the scenes video. Okay, though I didn't use these next shots in the actual finished film, I'm just gonna show you a little bit of my process. I started with the sequence out with Trevor grabbing his materials from his truck. The concept of this video is pretty simple. Just wanted to get some shots of Trevor setting up his fire, getting situated, and then going into the song. So as you see here, I have a couple of shots of him getting things going from different angles. I come in a bit closer here to get him lighting the fire. I really like how this shot turned out. Turn the camera upward here to get his expression while he's lighting the fire. This shot here made it into the final film. Really like how I have some grass in the foreground, and then Trevor's in the midground there, and then in the background, some nice separation. This adds a lot of depth to the shot and helps establish the environment. Now this next shot here of Trevor grabbing his guitar kind of caught him off guard. Didn't realize that I was right behind him. I was planning on doing this shot for the sequence, but this was a little bit more impromptu. Sometimes those shots turn out better than what you've planned. Moving on, I wanted to get some nice landscape shots, different details of the water, of the trees, of the snow. This helps establish the environment, provides a better experience for the viewer. In these next shots here, I'm setting up for the actual recording of the live session. Have my microphone stand in hand. Probably wondering why I brought gaffer's tape, but I'll show you why in a moment. Now for this audio recording, I'm using 3 different sources. I have this one mic that I'm setting up, a dynamic mic. This is going to capture more of his guitar than vocals. And then I have a tiny little Insta mic. It's a little lavalier style mic that I'm going to put on him for his vocals. Then I add into the mix also the on-camera microphone, which gathers a lot of the fire sound, the crackling, the highway in the background in the distance, a little bit of the water. So yeah, here I am with this gaffer's tape, taping up the mic clip here. I couldn't find the right adapter to screw it on, so when in doubt, use gaffer's tape. Saves you in a pinch. My dynamic mic is recording right into the Tascam DR10X. It's one of my favorite little recorders. Records at 2 levels, so you always have a safety just in case your first level is too hot. Now I didn't end up using this next shot, but I thought it was kind of cool of Trevor pouring his coffee into his cup. Like it with all the smoke and the steam that's coming off, but yeah, just didn't work in the final edit. Now here's me clipping on the Insta mic. I love this little microphone. It's not that popular, but it's really handy and it's waterproof. Now for the actual live recording, as you can see, I'm at a little bit of distance from Trevor. I just stayed in one spot for the whole thing through, had him framed up nicely. I could have opted to put the camera on a tripod or a monopod, but I really like the way that handheld footage looks. Having a little bit of shake really adds that natural movement to the image. So for the next few minutes, I just stay in this one spot, try to keep the camera level, and record Trevor doing his thing.
It's been so long. Way out there, I am the background. I don't care. It's been so long. The times I took center stage, the times, but 15 minutes is out. All the rest in vain. I belong north of the 49th, where the freezing rain tempers the mind. I belong north of the 49th, to stand tall the test of time, as the canyon river ran dry up north of the line. The unspoken news is for the birds to view in the sky. I belong here north of the 49th, where the melting snow hollows the eyes. I don't need no sunshine up north of the line.
Now we went through this song a second time. This is not the recorded version. We already accomplished that with the first take. This is just so I can grab some different angles of him playing that I can cut to for the final video. I mainly did tighter shots for this just because I found that it looked more natural when cutting to the original wide angle. Took the microphone stand out of the way.
It's been so long, way out there. I am the background. I don't care.
My main focus here was to get different details of him singing up close and of his hands playing the guitar.
Times I took center stage. At times, but 15 minutes is all the rest was in vain. I belong north of the 49, where the freezing rain tempers the mind.
This is one of my favorite angles where it's mainly just a white background behind him.
I belong north of the 49, to stand tall the task of time, as the canyon river ran dry up north of the line. Unspoken news is for the birds to view in the sky.
I also really like how this shot turned out with the trees in the background. The bare branches look really cool. Now for a project like this, you could definitely do many different takes to overlay on your main A-roll. For this project, I just kept it really simple and I'm just cutting between two different angles.
North of the 49, where the melting snow hollows the eyes, the open road never rides until north of the line.
Okay guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. Hope you found that interesting. Let me know if you have any comments or questions in the comment section below. I've listed all the gear that I used in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.
I'll fight for you if you want me to. I'll fight for you if you want me to. I'll fight for you if you want me to. I'll fight for you. When the snow turns to streams and the air is kinda on our skin, now the world blooms for spring, I will behold my love again. I've seen the night so pitch black, my eyes forgot to take a seat. I've seen the light all come back, and soon I'll have you next to me. Our love's still shaking this off. I'm finally free from its jaws. I feel things growing within. I feel life blooming again. I want to walk in the light. I want you walking with me. I feel things growing within. I feel life blooming again. Everybody's happy, it's that time of year. Snow on the sidewalk, songs full of cheer. But it's a lonely Christmas without you. Ain't got no presents, ain't got no stocking, ain't got no mistletoe. Yes, it's a lonely Christmas without you. Ain't got no reindeer, ain't got no rabbit, ain't got no mistletoe. It's a lonely Christmas. It's a lonely Christmas. Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo. When you are close, I can feel something inside falling so still. All of the noise just gives way. Inside our heads, we're so far away.